going to read the gospel story again in perhaps a less dramatic way, but I'm hoping that we can listen for God's words for us today. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts here this evening be acceptable to God as we listen for God's word among us. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not because he was so short in stature. So he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore tree to see Jesus because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He's gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there, and the Lord said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as." Then Jesus said to him, "Today, salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost. The grass withers and the flower fades, but these words of the Lord endure forever." Our daughter Emmy is now just about 2 years old. While we love her dearly, we're continually amazed by the ability of such a wee little girl to be able to turn our house topsy-turvy in a matter of minutes. With superhero speed, carefully planned schedules get revised, neatly cleaned rooms are turned upside down, and common household items become dangerous toys for play. Miss Barb, who is one of Emmy's teachers at the preschool where she attends, recently observed that Emmy is quite gifted at taking toys that she wants to play with from unsuspecting children in her class. Emmy waits until her friend turns away. She quietly walks over to the table where the friend is playing, slyly takes the toy from her friend, and trots off to a corner where she can play with that toy all by herself. Miss Barb, being the good teacher that she is, says that we need to work on sharing, and she's probably right. Several weeks ago, we went to a birthday party for one of Emmy's friends. Although all of the children took a gift to the party, we didn't take any time to open them. And I imagine that if any of you have been to a 2-year-old's birthday party, you can understand why. At this age, the children usually have difficulty parting with their own gifts. Tears and tantrums can easily be the result of giving away a gift that is so coveted by the gift giver. Most parents shrug off this behavior as a stage that we all intend to and hopefully will grow out of. Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't think that we can be too hard on Emmy or the rest of the 2-year-old generation of kids. Kids are part of a larger community that in many ways has equal difficulty in sharing. It's true that adults also often play childish games, but the stakes and the players are much different. We live in a society where we are encouraged to consider and to satisfy our own individual desires and needs first, even when satisfying those individual desires and needs comes at the expense of a larger community. Department stores bear slogans like "all for you." Consumer goods are marketed so that they seem to satisfy fantastic dreams and desires, even to create alternative realities, in some ways even to create alternative spiritualities. If we can only buy enough, we will be able to obtain peace, love, prosperity, and happiness. Polls from Tuesday's primary election in Michigan show that the economy is on the minds of American voters today. Many economists and consumers are predicted that we're heading toward a recession. This creates a kind of significant dilemma for us human well-being are market-driven today. What we're paid, what we wear, where we live, and even in many instances, how our nation interacts with other nations around the world are defined by an economy that lacks the mind, the sensitivity, and the compassion to see the impact of many of our choices on others. Competitive markets can't climb to a place where they can see the young woman who's sitting at a sewing machine more than 12 hours a day to sew the garments that we wear, even though she'll never be able to wear them and is only paid a few dollars for her labor. Competitive markets can't climb to a place where they can see the single father who's unable to afford health care because he's only paid minimum wage and doesn't have benefits, so therefore he's unable to satisfy the needs of his family. Competitive markets can't see the homeless people on our streets or the white flags that are placed outside the shelters, as I'm sure that they are today, because it is so cold the shelters cannot refuse to allow anyone in. The market and its force to define our realities too often obstructs our own visions. A competitive market will never be able to reach a place where it can feel the anguish of those who are left vulnerable by our actions and our economic policies. We are in desperate need today of getting a better vision of things. We're in desperate need today of climbing to a place where we can get a more expansive view of how our own individual households affect a larger household economy. What we need today is to climb to a place where we can see things differently. Zacchaeus' story is quite intriguing for us today because in this story he is able to gain that more expansive view. Zacchaeus understands that individual decisions must be made with the needs and the well-being of the whole community in mind. Zacchaeus, as Luke tells this story, was a tax collector. He was rich, maybe even fabulously so. In an ancient world, just as today, tax collectors were not the most popular people. They not only collected taxes to support the Roman Empire, but they also had to make enough money to be able to cover their own expenses and make a profit. Because of this, the process was open to extortion and to defrauding the people. Tax collectors were often suspected of dishonesty, and some were guilty of collaborating with Roman authorities at the people's expense. But if we read this story carefully, the author of Luke makes no such assumptions about Zacchaeus' work. In fact, the name Zacchaeus is a derivative of the Hebrew word Zakkai, meaning pure and innocent. Zacchaeus is a righteous, a pure, a clean, and innocent man. Zacchaeus' climb to the top of the sycamore tree represents his need to see above a crowd that obscures and obstructs his vision. When Jesus reaches the place where Zacchaeus is perched atop the tree, he invites him to come down and tells him that he wants to stay in Zacchaeus' house today. Zacchaeus welcomes him. It's interesting that in this story, it is the crowd who murmurs in response to the scene. Why would Jesus want to be the guest of a sinner? The crowd boxes Zacchaeus in and shuts him out of the community. I wonder if the crowd responds negatively to Zacchaeus for reasons other than his profession.